Actually, the Rio Frontline was just happening during the break. That's when the Frontline was quite on fire. I can say Munduru here is nodding her head in agreement on what was going on during the break. But Munyirwa Dennis is watching us and says, why would a minister call for a meeting on a day when there is a parliamentary sitting? What is the position of the First Lady in the hierarchy of Uganda's leadership, be it political or technical? Let Tayebwa and Mhanga answer to those questions. We're still discussing the controversy, the stalemate, the standoff between Parliament and the Minister of Education, who also happens to be First Lady of the Republic of Uganda. And Rhoda Yusuf says the Education Minister of Uganda, who is also the First Lady, is above us. Yeah, he's quoting what Honorable Tayebwa said. There are many messages that we have. Someone is asking, under what section of the Constitution is the First Lady above Parliament? The First Lady and the President are not one and the same. The Constitution is supreme to whatever protocol he is purporting is being followed. And I think that's for the Honorable Tayebwa. There are many other comments that are coming through. And then, yes, let me take a message from Tembo Kahugu, who says, I think it is an issue of rules. When MPs go for State of the Nation address, budget and election of Speaker, the venue is first declared to become precinct of Parliament. Everything that happens goes unanswered. Let me put these questions back to you, ladies and gentlemen. Can I start with you, Munduru? You hear the debate.
Yes.
Personally, I think it's an important discussion for the country.
It is.
Because lines need to be drawn between the different arms of government.
Precisely.
And this controversy brings us exactly to that. From a governance perspective, do you think this is a necessary discussion we should be having as a country on the front line?
Yes, I think it's very important, and I'll say why. Having listened to the discussions from both sides of the table, I would like to just re-echo what Chairman Mao spoke about, especially regarding the fact that there was a communication mishap. And I want to say why, because having followed the correspondences, the Speaker called this a semi-parliamentary session. Now, he also says he was going to preside over this session, just that he was going to do so without a whip. And so once you declare something like this, which is supposed to be from the conversations we've just had, an informal meeting, once you call it a formal session, then it will raise questions of procedure. I think it is very normal for members of Parliament to be invited to informal meetings, and I believe they've done this several times before. But the fact that this was communicated as a semi-session, especially on the floor by the Speaker, ultimately questions of procedure will arise. The rules already give powers to the Speaker to, of course, in exceptional circumstances, hold parliamentary sessions outside of Parliament. And in that case, even if, because of the importance of what we're speaking about, if we had to have Parliament sit outside of its, ordinary place of sitting, then that would be a declaration of the Speaker, at which then the Minister would make a statement which is within the rules. And there is within the rules laxity to discuss this statement at least within 1 hour. But if it were an informal meeting, as our colleagues here have said, then it should have been communicated as such from the onset, so that then there would be no procedural questions. Because the moment you formalize it, then questions of procedure come. And I believe why this discussion is very important is because there's a reason why we have the rules or we have the law. And I believe one of the governance infrastructures that the NRM ushered in is the concept of democracy and rule of law. And that means that by doing that, we accepted to be led within the confines of rule of law. So the first responsibility, even for our leaders, is to abide by the same rules that they've set in place. And that shouldn't be a question of debate, because I believe when a leader bows to the very rules that govern them, it is a concept of humility, but also the level of importance you attach to these very rules. And once we shift this debate to the battle of egos between two parties will lose a very important discussion around separation of powers, around respect for rule of law, especially where formalities are concerned. And in this, I'm not saying this because there was no relevance to the content of this meeting. That meeting was very important for the country, very important for the children who have been out of school for a long time. And because of, the merge between Parliament and then external persons outside of Parliament, the local governments and all of this who were coming into this place, the formality of this meeting should have been the forefront of the agenda. But outside of that, the moment the Speaker made this formal, that means the question of our rules and their importance in this discussion had to be emphasized.
Thank you.
And that's a very important discussion, in my opinion, for the country, without going into the sentiments, just from a rule of law perspective.
Okay. Honorable Tabe wants to make a clarification.
Just to clarify, and I just want to put this straight. This was a formal meeting for a Minister of Education, not a formal parliamentary sitting. The Speaker made a rule, guided the House. He said no MP should go out, or no one should call MPs for meetings without his permission. So the First Lady would have gone and called MPs, as usual how it had been the practice, but what she did now was informing the Speaker that I'm going to be having a meeting as Minister of Education, not as Parliament.
Which
okay?
I believe was the right
Just allow me to finish this. As a Minister of Parliament, and I'm inviting MPs. And she's like, even you, Right Honourable Speaker, I invite you, because he's also an MP.
Okay.
So, and because there are questions that came to
yes,
us,
there's a question.
which is
That's
very
what
important.
I wanted to read for you.
She requested the Speaker, she said, if Right Honourable you come, okay, since you know most of these MPs, you could even chair, but when it's a meeting for Minister of Education, you're also a participant, but you could chair. But that doesn't make it a formal parliamentary sitting, because the Speaker has not declared KOLOLO a venue for Parliament.
Honourable Taiwa, before you go back to Honourable Basari, I wanted to go back to him. Yeah. Could you briefly take our viewers through the evolution of this invitation?
Yes.
What happened first before majority Ugandans watched what unfolded on TV?
Sure.
What happened before?
Then we've been having very many questions regarding the reopening of schools, the status of schools and all that. And we felt we should consult widely the wider population all over the country, especially technical officers, leaders and all that. And instead of having very many meetings where the ministers and what could be going to the different regions and sub-regions of the country, we felt we could have one meeting at KOLOLO where they would all converge, we discuss, we agree on the way forward, we listen to people's views, and then the final decision is made on reopening of schools after having input and buy-in from several stakeholders. So we felt part of the meeting, part of the group invited were the MPs. So the meeting was not only for Parliament. The MPs were part of the meeting.
Let me ask a quick question. Why would it be necessary? Yeah. Or would you take the opinion of a member of Parliament at the same level as the opinion of a chief administrative officer?
No, you see,
or an LC5 chairperson? Why put them together?
You see, some of the MPs would have questions. Okay? Some of the MPs would have questions. But MPs, again, would have another chance of discussing and coming up with the final resolutions when you go to Parliament. Because after coming up with final resolutions, then they would be tabled in Parliament in form of a statement, where MPs would now formally make resolutions, adopt them, and we see how best we could move. Now, the problem was people immediately jumped on this, and it became a matter of the wife of the president and all that. But I wanted to make one clarification on the issue of the First Lady being above us. I think I will request the Chief of Protocol maybe one day you host him here, Ambassador Sentongo. He takes you through the protocol of government. When a president, when you're mentioning the president, and there is also the First Lady moves with the president. Everywhere. It's like you, Charles, If you're a member of parliament, I'm a member of parliament, and you're introducing me, you say Tayebwa, Honorable Tayebwa, and your dear wife. You can't say you're Adon Basarirwa, Gemma Whip, and all that, and then you conclude that we also recognize the presence of the wife of Honorable Tayebwa. So the First Lady moves with the President in the protocol of governments everywhere in the world.
You're now dealing with you're now dealing with the Minister of Education. Is that important that?
No, she doesn't take off the other hat. She moves with all her hats.
Okay.
The President is the Minister of Finance, the substantive Minister of Finance.
Okay.
Okay.
Honorable Basalirwa.
And that's international, by the way. That's why I said one day host the Chief of Protocol of Government. He takes you through, because me as a minister, I'm taken through protocol, and I follow the protocol as it is.
Okay, this question from Dennis was, what is the position of the First Lady in the hierarchy of Uganda's leadership, be it political or technical?
She moves with the spouse.
Eh?
She moves with the spouse.
I can see Basalirwa is shaking his head vigorously. Please, I'd like you to come back into this discussion. You've listened to everything, and it's being thrown back at you. You, members, especially of the opposition, are focusing on petty issues in regard to this debate. The Speaker said you're focusing on form, not substance. The important question of getting our children back to school after almost 2 years at home because of COVID-19.
Well, I think it's important that we appreciate that even form is necessary. You can discuss form, you can discuss substance, but they move together. When where you have rules, you cannot relegate rules simply because you are talking about substance. If you don't want rules, then do away with them completely. Just do away with them. But you cannot claim to have rules, then because you think you are discussing substance, then rules become secondary. And for me, that's where I have a big problem. Me as an individual, and even in my discussions on the floor, I was not talking about the venue. I was not talking about personality. I was talking about our rules. And that would be my argument. Because you see, if somebody says, you have been to Kololo before to elect the Speaker, yes, because the Constitution says so. You say you have been to Kololo during the State of the Nation address. Yes, because the Constitution says so. You have been to Kololo to listen to the budget speech. Yes, these are places, and whenever I have been there, there has been a proclamation that it is a sitting of Parliament. By the way, are you aware, Charles, that this Kololo meeting was actually a public meeting? Because I recall the leader of opposition asking the Speaker whether he could bring people from his constituency to come and tell. And the Speaker said, you are free, as long as they have taken COVID what?
Test.
COVID tests. So for all intents and purposes, this was a public meeting. And I am not so sure.
So why did you want to rule?
I am not so sure. No, I am not so sure how they were going to consult in a mob. I'm not so sure how it was going to be done. But be that as it may, the beauty with Parliament is that eventually government will have to make a statement to Parliament on reopening of schools. And the MPs will have an opportunity to engage with the executive on that aspect.
No, we'll first have that meeting.
So, and there's no problem. There's no problem. The meeting can take place. And by the way, whoever wants to go should go. For me, I am not stopping anybody from going. Whoever wants to go will go. As a member of Parliament, I have an opportunity that matter will come to my territory. I'll have opportunity to listen to the statement. If I have issues to raise, I will raise them at that point. So at the end of it all, and Chairman Mao raises the issue of communication. I'll tell you, Charles, every day MPs receive invitations to attend various, events, even government events. NRM days, they even send communications to us, the opposition. Even NRM days, NRM functions. They never find their way on the floor of the House.
But you know what the Speaker ruled this man?
Sorry?
The Speaker put a directive on the floor that MPs to be invited for functions or activities outside, you must pass through him. So for us, what we did, what the minister did, wrote to the Speaker.
No,
so it was up to the Speaker either to announce it on the floor.
No, I think the ruling of the Speaker was not how you perceive it. My understanding of the guidance of the Speaker was that there are government agencies or NGOs that invite MPs to hotels, and they even facilitate them. Yes, they even facilitate them. They give them money, and they are discussing processes in Parliament. So the Speaker, rightly so, guided that, you see, that has an implication of compromising. It has the effect of compromising. But if the Honorable Tayewa has a consultation to make in his constituency, he has, for example, the Muslim community in his constituency, and he invites me to go and attend, that is perfectly in order.
But you're saying KOLOLO was going to compromise the integrity of Parliament.
No. I think
that's what most of your people say.
No, you are
you are
mixing. You are mixing issues. Yeah. It was not compromising. It was the issue of setting a precedent, which is alien in our rules. And I don't know why I don't know. I don't know. In our rules, there is nothing like a semi-parliamentary session. It is not there in our rules. And for me,
I think you are just lost.
You are going to make all forms of arguments. If you can guide on how a semi-parliamentary session can be conducted,
there is no.
Then we take that path.
Okay. Let me put this.
We don't have any contest.
Hold it a moment.
We invited people for a meeting.
Those
who want to come should come.
Hold it,
Those who don't want to
that's
come,
what
they
the
shouldn't
Speaker
come.
said.
Honorable Taiwa, hold it for a moment. I want to come back to you, Honorable Basalirwa. You, in this segment, you're arguing about the rules of procedure. How does this really impact on a girl or boy or parent in Bujiri that you represent, that you spent a whole afternoon in Parliament debating those rules of procedure on a matter as critical as when schools will and how they will reopen?
No, first of all, if a minister wants to make a statement to the country, the rules of procedure provide an avenue. That's if you want to engage MPs. And we are talking about engagement which will go on record. We are talking about engagement which will even influence appropriation. If you want to do that, the rules are provide. So a minister will come to Parliament, will make a statement, and the MPs will have an opportunity to engage with you, make suggestions, make proposals, make resolutions, which, by the way, are more binding than an informal consultation.
Okay.
So if you really want to take Parliament very seriously in terms of engagement, it is better to use the avenue provided, but that does not take away your right to engage in informal consultations. It's not there.
Okay.
So why were you
But if you want a serious engagement with Parliament, the rules are there.
Okay.
So you can take advantage of the rules. And by the way, the implication is that you make a statement, it goes on record, it will be followed up, you'll be accountable for that statement, and not an informal setup. How would you
Honorable Tayewa, Honorable Mhanga, hold it a moment.
You don't even know what you are talking about anymore.
No, but
because
understanding is optional.
Now you are saying
understanding is
it was
optional.
an informal meeting where you wanted to apply the rules of parliament,
Okay.
the rules of procedure. So
let
which
me
is
ask- let me ask-
which is which?
Actually,
This is for the two
you don't
ministers.
seem to understand what I am
No,
saying. The
you
problem
seem
now
to be
is
meandering around.
you mean I am advocating for rules in an informal meeting?
No.
The point is that what was being held is outside the rules of parliament.
Okay.
I was not saying
but
that
it was not a parliamentary meeting.
I'm not saying that we go and apply parliamentary rules in an informal setting.
Okay.
No, I am above that.
Let me put
Because
this.
I understand those
And
rules.
so,
Hold it a
why
moment.
didn't you agree to go to a meeting?
No, but it was optional. You go.
Hold it, Honorable
You go
Margaret
and
Muhando.
attend.
Honorable Tayebwa,
Eh.
could you explain to our viewers the meaning of a semi-parliamentary sitting?
No, the speaker used the word semi.
Yes,
Margaret-
according to the speaker.
If Margaret was not attentive, that's her problem.
What
The
exactly?
speaker used the word semi. But I also think, Charles, you are being unfair.
Yes.
I think you are being unfair to my brother Thomas. It is the speaker who explained
Yes.
that this is a semi-parliamentary session. I think it would be unfair to put the question to to Thomas to explain.
Well,
with due respect, it would be unfair.
Honorable Thomas Tayebwa is here to speak for himself. Congratulations, the other day you are graduating with a master's degree.
Yeah, but
you have about 3 degrees.
young
So
brother
please,
won't allow me to
you have
focus
you
on
have 4
the
degrees already, and you're the Speaker of Parliament and you represent people of Mitoma Ruinda.
Yeah.
Please, tell our viewers, Government Chief Whip,
From our side,
what is semi-parliamentary session?
from our side,
Yes.
Semi.
this was a formal meeting for Minister of Education. This was a formal meeting for Minister of Education. That's why I was uncomfortable, Basari, you were calling it informal. Because if we wanted to make a statement,
that's what the speaker said.
if we wanted to make a statement, we know Rule 52 of our Rules of Procedure is very clear. We can make a statement, it's debated for 1 hour, and we make resolution. But it was a formal meeting where we wanted to consult. Like Honorable Asman put it, it is the speaker who called it semi, so I wouldn't want to go into interpreting the message of the speaker. So I'm uncomfortable going that line. But all I know is the speaker meant well, and he was encouraging colleagues to come and listen because his focus was on
He
the
did not
message.
only say, the
was
speaker
on
did
the
not only
discussion.
say this was a semi-parliamentary sitting, he also said he would chair the meeting.
Yeah, because we requested him to do so.
Offered to chair the meeting.
We requested him to do
Was
so.
he requested? Did he offer?
No, we requested him to do so. Reason being, he knows MPs much better than even the minister. Number 2, because the minister would be the one presenting, so the interaction stage, she wouldn't again be the one to chair that session. So that's why he requested the speaker this time to do that. And we are glad the speaker agreed. So I've seen a message more or less like ridiculing the speaker, that he had bowed, he had done what. No, that's being unfair to the speaker. The speaker was just being very, very clear that I'm interested in this topic being discussed, whoever is discussing it. If the Honorable Rope, Leader of Opposition, Matthias Mpuga, after Kololo, also called the meeting of that nature, there wouldn't be a problem going for it, because I would benefit. And then it enriches my debate on the floor. But if one chooses to wait and then debate on the floor, because their focus are resolutions, not enriching, but just resolutions, then we would do it.
Okay. I'd like to have closing arguments on this, and then, because we need to move on to discuss the
Maybe
strike
there was an issue
by
of
main
time.
caucus. Yes.
Someone said, how could they call that meeting
When
during
Parliament
plenary?
was in session.
The meeting was starting at 10 and ending at 12:30. Plenary was starting at 2 p.m. So we were very, very cautious not to interfere with plenary.
Because of the postponement, plenary began at 11, and that's how we were able to conclude the NSSFB.
Okay. Someone called Matthew Kojo is watching the show and says, if Honorable Basaliro has failed to understand the issue of the meeting, let him go mobilize and work on the law against the sitting First Lady being a minister. But for now, let him swallow the bitter pill and go to Kololo and listen to the minister to his Minister of Education.
Namboza said she will send police to arrest her. and we wished her luck.
Honorable Margaret Mahanga, let me come to you, and then I'll come to Honorable Mao before we switch topics. The question, and there is a concern, that there's been a fudging of the different arms of government. The protocols of the First Lady and the President coming into Parliament. Someone has again said, there is a formal process through which the President addresses Parliament. And that, to his credit, he has maintained the discipline to address Parliament when he is required to address Parliament, when he is invited to address Parliament, or when he has an issue he feels he should address Parliament on. That why would the First Lady run roughshod over this?
No, the First Lady does not have the avenue to address Parliament. That's why she wrote a request. We should distinguish between a request. I can see your catchword here is bullying. Is the First Lady bullying Parliament? Why should you use such hard words? You are the people who are creating this toxic politics. You in the media.
We're asking questions.
Yes.
And
also,
you're here to
you are
answer them,
causing also trivial discussions. Why are we discussing these things sincerely for more than 1 hour? What are we discussing? That the First Lady called a meeting in KOLOLO. Instead of going to the substance, like the Honorable Mao said, let us discuss the reopening of schools. Our children have been home for 2 years. A lot has happened. Some have even given up school. Some teachers have become peasants. Others have gone into trade. I mean, reopening schools is the issue at hand. Why should we go to discuss the person who has called the meeting, where the meeting is going to take place? Is that really important? For the country to be on this, even us sitting here, important people in the country, and we are discussing for 1.5 hours how the First Lady called a meeting. What hell is this?
Ugandans that you're talking about just elected
they want to listen to us talking about reopening of schools,
to Parliament.
Charles.
They just elected you to Parliament in January. You haven't celebrated 1 anniversary since they elected you to Parliament, meaning that they put value to that institution of Parliament. And
now, do they want to listen to us talking about a venue or personalities?
Just a minute. These same Ugandans believe or know the principle of separation of powers. And if they have a perception that, or a belief, if they are made to believe by the elected officials on the floor of Parliament, from the opposition especially, who said this is an abuse of processes of Parliament, of our rules of procedure, then we should be discussing it on the front line, shouldn't we?
Let me agree with Mao now 100%. These people are speaking for the gallery. You call them to any hotel just next to Parliament and you say there is a transport refund. They will go running even if it is 50K. These members of Parliament, you see. Then you wonder why they are refusing to go to, because they want to get to something, like to oppose everything that has come from government, especially anything to do close to the president. Because this First Lady is close to the president, so if we attack her, we are getting to our target. That's just that. That is the only issue.
Okay.
They totally have nothing.
Thank you.
Right now, we should be discussing how these children will get back to school, how we shall have our schools back in a sane way. Because many schools have gotten dilapidated, others have anthills inside, others they have become hunting grounds. This is the salient issue a Ugandan wants to listen to, not a venue where members of Parliament
and
are
maybe
going to
that
meet.
salient issue, I don't know what Honorable Mao has to say, that salient issue, shouldn't it be coming in the House of the People's Representatives? That salient issue.
It will come
in
to
a
the
more
House.
formal and organized way.
It will
that
come
people
to the
can
House
follow.
at the right time.
After
these consultations.
The fact that MPs disagree.
No opposition.
No, I'm saying generally, if there are disagreements in Parliament, that is to be expected. When I say we have toxic politics, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be disagreements. We should be clear about what we are disagreeing about. The reasons now being advanced for people not to ask questions about this strange request. Some of them actually are not necessary. The invitation is not to individual MPs. The order of precedence puts MPs even below traditional leaders. Yes. And in that same strange order of precedence, a vice chairman of the National Resistance Movement pops up very far up there. And I consider him to be at the level of my vice president of DP. So I do not know. So when DP is in power, will the vice chairman of DP also? So Uganda has a lot of abnormal things. And in our struggle to cope, to comply, we are encountering problems. The First Lady is not above the institution of Parliament. She may be above me, she may be above to you, she may be above the Vice President because of the nature of our respect for the institution of the family and also the position of a presidential spouse. I think that one we accept, but not the institution of Parliament.
I never
said that.
And I think
no, you said the
He
First
said
Lady
it's
is above us.
individuals.
Yes, it's above us individuals.
I thought you said us as Parliament.
Individuals, not the
Numbers
institution
was
of
saying
Parliament.
she's going to send people to arrest
Police.
Okay, gentlemen
Well,
and ladies.
there was once a group in New York
Gentlemen
that
and
tried
ladies,
to
we
carry
need to take a
down.
break. Can we allow
There
Mao
are
to
people who
finish
tried
his
a
submission?
citizen's arrest against Robert Mugabe, and the consequences were disastrous. Many of those who attempted it ended up in a New York hospital because those who got the president are authorized to do anything. And I'm sure that also applies to those who got the First Lady. I wouldn't advise it, but that's beside the point. I'm sure it was a joke.
Okay.
So, Parliament, in a normal functioning democracy, is an avenue where we should all be entering. Now, Corona has come recently, but even before Corona, even as citizens, we have had problems accessing Parliament. And our MPs, now it is security people who interview us about what we are going to do in Parliament. I don't want to be interviewed by a uniformed police officer or a military officer about what is my business. I want them to check me to ensure that I'm not a security threat. I want a parliamentary employee at the reception to interview me about my business.
Okay.
So I want my MPs, particularly people like the Honorable Suman Basalirwa, to look comprehensively on how to make Parliament a viable institution that serves the country, because this kind of tug of war that Parliament has specialized in sucks away the energy that we should be using as a country to confront.
Thank you.
We have bigger problems than the First Lady coming to want to address. That can be settled.
Thank you.
I want Parliament to hold briefing sessions. More importantly, Parliament can host anybody. Parliament can invite Joshua Cheptegei to address Parliament. You know, the Prime Minister of India the other day came and addressed Parliament. People can be given that platform. It is at the discretion. If tomorrow you have a representative of the Ethiopian community, Honorable Basalirwa has the right to notify members of Parliament and also inform the Speaker that I'm hosting a briefing session. And MPs who are interested, please come.
Okay.
It is not a parliamentary committee, it is not an inquiry, but it is for the purpose of informing members. And that is how a normal Parliament should be working. So I want to invite members of Parliament to continue asserting their authority in other areas also, not just pushing back against this one. This one is quite minor in my opinion.
Thank you very much. Let's take, as we take a break, George Muhimbise is saying, Honorable Taiba and Honorable Mahanga are being dishonest. The way the Deputy Speaker communicated was more of a directive and a parliamentary session. What is the difference between a semi-parliamentary session and a parliamentary session? What is the boundary between the two in terms of legal binding? Secondly, what kind of a consultation would it be to have 519 MPs, 136 CAOs, 136 LC5 chairpersons, city town clerks, Ministry of Education officials, etc.? Was it a meeting or a mob? Lastly, the hierarchy starts with the president, vice president, speaker, etc. Would you say the wife of the speaker is of a higher in hierarchy than a minister, since she can be addressed together with her husband, the speaker? And then Yedidia Nyakahangura has shared a historical photo, which I will share with the concerned parties during the break. When we come back, we'll be discussing the strike by medical workers.
NBS Frontline. The daylight makes most things shine. With the right lights, everything looks bright. Gent brings the magnificence, elegance, and beauty of your home to life. Crafted to perfection. Detail and extravagance, leaving nothing to chance. Your dream home is only a switch away. Switch to the best. Gent Electric.
It's the festive season and we love it. And that means it's time to celebrate with GoTV.
Come with me.
So get your GoCoder and GoTV value for 25,000 shillings to watch with the whole family. And if you're feeling extra festive, upgrade to our best package yet, GoTV Super.
Something to look forward to.
Download the My GoTV app for more information.
Super.
We all deserve a super festive season. And with GoTV, there's every reason to love it.
Are you a company looking to grow your fleet or simply need a car to get you from point A to point B? Think Intercar. Rentals, operational leases, and driver services. With our large fleet of luxury and ordinary cars, you have your pick. And speaking of pick, why not have us do that for you with our 24-hour